What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the world according to Briggs. How about we talk about the ATL, or Atlanta, Georgia? Atlanta has a few other nicknames: the City in a Forest, the Gate City, the Hollywood of the South, and my favorite, Hotlanta. They got that one because it gets pretty damn hot in Atlanta during the summers. Well, actually all of Georgia. And summers in Atlanta seem to go on forever. I've actually heard the locals say that there's two seasons in Atlanta: summer and Christmas. I lived in Atlanta for a couple years, a couple different times in my life. I found the people lived up to the Southern charm. I enjoyed the food, the sports, the nightlife, and a girl named Jolene. Her real name was actually Joey, but she didn't like having a boy's name, so she told everyone to call her Jolene. We quit dating when she bought a crossbow and throwing knives for home protection. I asked why she didn't just get a gun, and she said, because of my parole. I said, for what? She said, aggravated battery on my ex. Like I was supposed to know this. She just looked at me like I was an idiot for not knowing that. Besides Jolene, Atlanta has a lot of interesting people in this very interesting city. And I'm going to tell you about Atlanta right now. For a few thousand years, the indigenous Creek people and their ancestors inhabited the area around present-day Atlanta. So the Creek people were like the original locals. The Creeks were forced to leave the area in 1812 under the Indian Removal Act by the federal government. Not one of our better moments. But Atlanta is relatively young for a major city, on the right side of the country at least. You have some cities that have been around since the 1600s, like New York, Boston, Charleston, South Carolina, St. Augustine, Florida. New Orleans, Mobile, and Savannah showed up in the early 1700s. Atlanta was founded in 1837. Prior to that, it was only a rail stop. As it happens so many times in this nation's early history, when the train showed up, so did the people. Once they did, Atlanta was on its way. It was incorporated into a city on December 29th, 1847, not too long before the Civil War. During the Civil War, there was the Battle of Atlanta and a 4-month siege where the Union Army just bombarded the city, eventually chasing the Confederate Army out of there. General Sherman moved in and ordered the destruction of all the government buildings, so they set fire to everything. This was in August and September of 1864. Little over 100 years later, Atlanta got an NHL team and decided to name them the Flames in honor of the burning of Atlanta. This ended up not being Atlanta's last brush with flames. On May 21st, 1917, the Great Atlanta Fire went down. This destroyed over 1,900 buildings in what is now called the Fourth Ward. Luckily, this only killed one person, but put about 10,000 people on the streets. During the 1950s and 1960s, Atlanta became the center of the civil rights movement with Dr. Martin Luther King, Ralph David Abernathy, and other major movement leaders. That should be no surprise for anyone that knows anything about the civil rights movement. Really, just about any major southern city in Washington, D.C. was pretty much embroiled in the whole civil rights thing. There was some form of protest or occurrence in just about every major city in the South. In its history, Atlanta has only seen 2 decades where they actually lost population. That was in 1980 census when they lost 14% of the population. And then in the 1990 census, they had lost 7.3% of the population. Every other census, they've done really well. Just this last one, they gained 18.7%. In 2000, the population of Atlanta, the city, not the whole metro area, was 416,000. In 2020, they jumped up to almost 500,000 at 498,000. The whole metro area has about 6 million residents. So the city itself is a good-sized city, but the metro area is a huge metro area. Like I'd said earlier, Atlanta got its start for being a railroad town. Transportation, logistics, and freight have always been a big part of Atlanta's economy and employed most of the people for a very long time. These days, it's the headquarters of everything. Coca-Cola's there, Home Depot, AT&T, Chick-fil-A, UPS, Delta Airlines, broadcasting companies like Turner Network, CNN, The Weather Channel, Cox Enterprises. And like I'd said at the beginning, they have this nickname, the Hollywood of the South. That's because a lot of movies and a lot of entertainment companies are moving production to the Atlanta area. Well, really all of Georgia, but Atlanta gets a big part of it. Most of The Walking Dead is filmed in different parts of Georgia. Technology is becoming a big part of Atlanta's economy. Atlanta has a lot of things technology companies are looking for: an educated workforce, lower cost than places like California, and even better than Texas in some cases. But with Atlanta, they've got a lot of companies and a lot of people working, a lot of great industries. They just have so many these days, it's kind of hard to really nail it down to which one it is, you know? What's their main one? Like I've said in the last videos like this, when it comes to neighborhoods, the locals have different opinions, and people that just visit there have different opinions. That's why we go by a number called livability. This takes all the stats in and tells you what the livability of a place is. Now, when it comes to the nicest neighborhoods, just because it's the most expensive neighborhood doesn't always mean it's the best, and just because it's the most dangerous neighborhood doesn't mean it's the absolute worst. If you talk to 100 locals and ask them what the best neighborhood is and what the worst neighborhood is, you're going to get 30 different answers on each. That's why we go by the stats and the livability score. One of the best places to live in Atlanta is not too far from downtown. It's Candler Park. Candler Park is a registered historical neighborhood. It's pretty interesting. It's one of Atlanta's original suburbs and was founded in 1890, so it's been around a while. The only thing in this neighborhood that isn't graded an A or A+ is cost of living, because when it's really nice, it's expensive. The crime in Candler Park is 68% lower than the national average. Their schools have a 98% graduation rate. That's solid. Median household income is about 63% higher than the national average. And their cost of living is only 30% higher than the national average. That's not terrible. Remember, there's places like San Francisco and Seattle where they're like 200% higher than the national average. Candler Park has a livability score of 90. When you get to the middle of the road neighborhood, there's probably like 10 good ones to choose from. From a statistic point of view, there's Grove Park. Grove Park has a crime rate that's 20% higher than the national average, but their cost of living is actually 17% lower than the national average, and their housing is about 75% lower than the national average. Is this a perfect neighborhood? Absolutely not. Is it decent? Yeah. Grove Park has a livability score of 70. And now we get to the less than desirable neighborhoods. This one is where we get most of our comments. People always seem to think that some neighborhood is the absolute worst, and a lot of times this has to do with reputation. Maybe in the 90s or early 2000s, this was a really, really bad neighborhood, but things may have gotten better. People haven't caught up with the stats yet. That's usually what I find. And then sometimes you just got these clowns that are trying to get street cred by claiming their neighborhood's the worst in the whole city. It's weird. So again, that's why we have to go by the stats. And honestly, Atlanta probably has 9 different neighborhoods that could be considered one of the absolute worst they have. We're going with Oakland City as the worst. They have a livability score of 54. Is this their most dangerous neighborhood? Absolutely not. Their crime rate is only 30% higher than the national average. Their cost of living is actually 14% lower, but their unemployment rate is horrible. It's actually 138% higher than the national average. Their schools don't get high marks, and just about every block in this small neighborhood has a couple boarded up houses. One last thing I will tell you about this. The locals always have different names for places, but these are the names that are actually on the books. And the reason we use those is so people looking them up on a map know where they are. When it comes to the main stats people are looking for in Atlanta, it's always crime and cost of living. Housing prices are up there as well. When it comes to crime, the total crime rate in Atlanta is 119% higher than the national average. Their violent crime rate is 103% higher, and their property crime is 121% higher. Like I've said in past videos, that's not the absolute worst. That would be someplace like Southside Chicago or Detroit, where it's 300 and 400% above the national average. Their cost of living isn't terrible. It's 5% higher than the national average. Housing is about 16% higher than the national average, and the average home price in Atlanta is about $320,000 for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. The food scene. Atlanta has a pretty good food scene. Sadly, their number one style of food isn't my type of thing, so I sent a message to a friend of mine who grew up in Buckhead that loves soul food. I found out the name of a couple places. I also found out he moved out of Atlanta about 4 years ago. I did not know that. I don't know how I missed it. I mean, we communicate back and forth on Facebook at least a couple times a month. He's in Chattanooga now, but he still goes down to Atlanta to visit family. He said K&K Soul Food is an absolute must for anyone that likes soul food. He named another place that closed down during the pandemic, so we won't get into that one. When you're looking for touristy things to do in Atlanta, you gotta go to Centennial Park. They got dancing fountains there, and it was the site of the Olympic Park bombing on July 27th, 1996. That's an interesting story. There's a movie called Richard Jewell or something like that. Richard Jewell was a security guard that found the bomb before it went off. He saved a lot of lives. The FBI went after him. They were sure it was him. They ruined this poor dude's life. They made him look like this total reject, wannabe cop, and he's trying to play the hero. They totally went after this dude. Then come to find out, it was some jackaloon ex-army vet that got out and was pissed off at everything and decided to bomb Eric Rudolph. He's still in jail. Sadly, Richard Jewell died in 2007 at the age of 44. Also, you have to go see Stone Mountain Park. This is one of the most popular places to visit near Atlanta. Right in the middle of the park is a giant granite stone. It's this big, huge boulder cliff mountain thing. It's got some Confederate generals etched into it, but it's a very popular place to visit. My favorite place that I've ever visited in Georgia is the World of Coca-Cola. This is basically a museum of Coca-Cola. It's really, really interesting. You'd think this is just a soft drink. What's the big deal? No, Coca-Cola is a big part of American history and pop culture. But this place is very, very interesting. I'd suggest going by if you're in Atlanta. Also, now this one could have gone in food, but really, they're not really known for their food. Their food's not the greatest, but there's a place in Atlanta called the Varsity. They have a couple throughout the country now, but this is a tourist spot. You gotta kind of go there and eat there once. It's almost like when you're in Southern California, it's kind of interesting to go by the first McDonald's. But the Varsity is something you gotta stop by. Don't expect it to be the best food, it's just fast food, but it's pretty interesting. When it comes to the racial makeup, the demographics basically of Atlanta, it goes something like this. 50.95% are black or African American. White is 40.9%, Asian is 4.4%, and Hispanic is only 4.3%. Honestly, since we've been doing these, I think that is the lowest percentage Hispanic population of a major city. When you look at the religious makeup of Atlanta, you're looking at 63% Protestant, 11% Roman Catholic, 1% Mormon, 1% Jehovah's Witness, and 1% Judaism. Everyone else is under 1%. When it comes to sports, Atlanta is represented by all the major sports. The Atlanta Braves in Major League Baseball, the Atlanta Hawks in the NBA, the Atlanta Falcons in the NFL. They've had two hockey teams, the Atlanta Flames, which are now in Calgary, and then they had the Atlanta Thrashers. They were in Atlanta from 1999 to 2011 when they moved to Winnipeg and became the Jets. They have a Major League Soccer team, Atlanta United FC, and in the WNBA, they had the Atlanta Dream. From 1901 to 1966, Atlanta had the minor league baseball team, the Atlanta Crackers. I'm not even kidding. Very unfortunate name. They were moved out of town when the Atlanta Braves came. They moved to Richmond, Virginia, and changed their name to the Richmond Braves. I honestly think the Atlanta Braves uniform, and their hat especially, in the 1970s when Hank Aaron played for them, that was the best uniform in Major League Baseball. Atlanta has some really interesting people that were born and, in most cases, raised in the city of Atlanta. They have a ton of hip-hop and rap stars. Some of the more famous ones were Kanye West. He was born in Atlanta but raised in Chicago. T.I., Monica, Andre 3000. Dr. Martin Luther King was born in Atlanta. His boyhood home still stands. Actor Ed Helms was born in Atlanta. The wrestler Bill Goldberg, he grew up and now lives in Atlanta. Julia Roberts was born in one of the suburbs of Atlanta. Spike Lee was born in Atlanta. As far as athletes go, honestly, there's far too many to go over in this list, but I'm just going to name a couple of the more famous ones. Dwight Howard was born in Atlanta. Evander Holyfield was raised in Atlanta. Cam Newton was born in Atlanta. I know I missed a bunch of actors, directors, musicians. I just don't have time to name all of them. So, in a nutshell, Atlanta is a great city. Plenty of things to do, plenty of things to see, wonderful people to meet. Sure, it's got its problems, just like every other city, state, town, burg, village, or Walgreens. Nothing is perfect. If you ever get a chance to visit Atlanta, I would do so. Definitely check out the Coca-Cola Museum. All right, everyone, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Go out, have a great day, be nice to each other.